Take me out to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I ever get back, 'cause it's root for the home team. They don't win, it's a shame, 'cause it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
Welcome to Let's Get To, the baseball podcast from the fans' perspective. Now here's your host, James Christopher.
And welcome to Let's Get To. I'm your host, James Christopher, and we've got a pretty interesting show for you today, where about half our segments are going to be about sports other than baseball. We're going to talk a little soccer. And for my Texans out there, we're going to talk a little rodeo. That's right. As I quote later on in the show, the great Garth Brooks, an Oklahoman, but we don't hold that against him. It's the bulls and blood and the dust and mud. Yeah, so we're going to talk a little rodeo. We are talking a little bit of minor league baseball. We've got a holler and a swaller coming, but, I hope everybody is enjoying these playoffs. I hope everybody's realizing that, we're getting some really good games. And yeah, I'm recording this right now before game 3 of the ALCS starts. I don't know how the Astros are going to end up doing, if they're going to be basically on the brink of elimination or not. But, if I take a step back, it's been even a very entertaining ALCS. So I hope everybody is at least enjoying the quality of baseball. I do want to talk a little bit about a tweet that I sent about how the Astros really are playing with house money. And what I meant by that was pretty specific. And if you would have told me, let me back up. Way back in February, we started recording several segments with several regular contributors with their picks for the Major League season. And we had created a massive spreadsheet with all kinds of it was awesome looking with team logos. And everybody picked everything from each division to the wild cards to the wild card series to the division series to the LCS to the World Series champion. And obviously, newsflash, none of that happened on its schedule. But at that time, I picked the Astros to lose to the Yankees in the ALCS. I felt like if you take Cole away from one team and add it to another team, knowing that those teams already played a tight ALCS in 2019, the advantage would logically go to the new team. It's not rocket science, even though there was math. When the outbreak happened, I had kind of the same pick. I felt like there would still be the Yankees over the Astros. And then when Justin Verlander goes down, who is the AL Cy Young Award winner, when you lose Roberto Osuna, who led the AL in saves, when you lose Yordan Alvarez, who was the Rookie of the Year, and then you also don't have Joe Smith coming back because he had to opt out for family reasons. None of those things are excuses. You just talked about several award winners in best at their craft not going to be impacting the playoffs. I honestly wasn't sure we would make it and didn't think we would last past the first couple of rounds. So that's what I mean by house money. Back in the ALCS, back in the Final Four. And I say this because I say it to the twerps on Twitter, like that little asterisk tour guy, who, I'll be honest, I blocked him a long time ago. I think anybody who tries to gain Twitter notoriety by doing nothing but making fun of people getting pitches thrown at them is kind of like the lowest form of life. So yeah, I blocked him. I'm open about that. It's not karma to lose the 4th game of the ALCS to a team truly built to win 7 games in 7 days like the Rays. And I don't even know that they're going to win. I still actually firmly believe that the Astros can pull these out because they have hit the ball hard and they have all of those sort of underneath metrics that indicate that they have an offensive breakout coming at any time. I'm just saying, losing in the ALCS, being one of the last 4 teams standing, isn't karma. It's that you're really good and had key injuries. That's what it is. Karma is losing to Minnesota. Karma is losing to Oakland, who wanted to prove they were the best. Karma is anything other than losing in the ALCS. And I will again, I will say any fan that is upset, any fan that is not, that wants to be mad at the Astros, I don't begrudge you at all, because if I were you, if I were a Dodger fan, if I were a Yankee fan, I'd be pissed too. I would. But, the media that's saying, well, now Tampa's America's team or whatever. Let's be honest, media, you're upset Tampa's even this far. Don't be disingenuous. So, that's all I'm going to say about the Astros and their predicament for the rest of this episode. Again, great show. We're going to be talking a little bit of Appalachian League, which I'm very excited about. So stay with us.
Go Astros, a focus on H-Town hardball.
And so we are here on an emergency Go Astros as the Astros sit one game from elimination. They are 27 outs away from their season being over. And, you see how people fan a lot on social media. And I also understand that social media isn't always indicative or representative of how people are. But, I was thinking about how I react to the Astros losing. And I don't really get mad at the baseball team. I do get mad at a football team. And I think in part of that's because there are fewer games. And I think because football is a much more sort of homogenous sport in how it's covered and the fact that it's so national at every level, that it's hard to get to know the players the same way. When it comes to the Astros, I'm on every pitch pretty much for the whole 162. Even if it's as simple as while I'm covering another team for Let's Get To, I've at least got the app up and I'm at least periodically checking. So I'm very aware of what's happening. I watch every episode of Astros Bases Loaded. And what that does is it means that you connect to the players differently. You start to like the players. You start to feel like the players are friends is obviously not correct, but there's an emotional attachment to them. And I think it's just different than, oh, look at them. They are they're the really good quarterback, so I like them. Because sometimes the attachment you get is to the 26th man on the roster. So I think because of that, I don't get mad when they lose. I get bummed for them. I'm sad for them. I see them out there working their ass off trying to win. And I think that baseball fans who think that they're playing lazy and they are playing with no heart don't understand the sport, because I don't think that baseball is a sport that you do better at by trying. Like, I think the whole idea is to clear the mechanism. And so for me, that's kind of where I maybe part ways with a lot of people. And, the example of that is the fact that we know the whole Enoli's cannoli thing. Enoli Paredes was a pitcher for High A Fayetteville last year. He shouldn't even be up here now. But he's already kind of got a hit with the fan base, in part because of that Enoli's cannoli story. And I recommend looking it up if you don't know what it is. It is why Astros fans get so defensive of Altuve, because so much was made of his jersey, but that his jersey's been a thing. Like, it was a thing in June of 2019, and it was a thing in previous seasons of 2019. Learning about Springer and his work with kids who stutter, like all of that stuff means you like the players. And if you're a human being, you feel for people that are in pain instead of being angry at them for that. That's at least how I do it. And I understand that everybody's mileage may vary. And so, 27 outs, 27 outs to enjoy Astros baseball at a minimum. And some of the stuff that I'm going to be thinking about is, I'm going to watch Altuve and I'm going to hope he bounces back. And nobody has more heart or love for this city or this baseball team than him. And I'm not going to think Altuve's legacy for me is not going to be 2 errors in their 4th straight ALCS. His legacy is going to be fielding that ground ball in Game 7 of 2017, or walking off Chapman in 2019, but also playing on one leg in 2018. Like, this guy has earned Astros fans' respect. And I think somebody said he's the most defended guy on Astros Twitter, and he should be. He has taken the brunt of this cheating scandal, despite the fact that every single statistical analysis said that he was the least person to use it. And that's backed up anecdotally by the stories coming out of the clubhouse that said he was actually quite angry when he heard a bang when he was hitting. But for some reason, he has become the focus with short jokes and all that stuff. So I'm gonna watch him and see how he responds. And I hope that he realizes that the city of Houston is super appreciative and glad that he's going to be around. I'm going to watch Springer and look, this is probably Springer's last game as an Astro. And I'm never going to blame someone for taking a better offer, for taking a little bit more money, for doing something a little bit better for his family, especially when you factor in what the team and the front office led by Jeff Luhnow did to him, manipulating his service time. I think that's a thing. But I'm never going to get mad at somebody in America taking a better gig for a little bit more money. You don't think if MLB Network called me, I wouldn't be all like, let's get what now? Exactly. So I'm going to watch Springer, and I'm going to watch, Greinke hopefully throw a 45-mile-an-hour curveball. And I'm going to watch some of these young arms that have me hopeful for next year and really just do my best to enjoy it and not get mad. And again, I understand I won't begrudge anybody for being angry. I feel like that anger is oftentimes directed at other things beside the game on the field. And I think also too, Astros fans have a lot of angst this year when we're hoping that a World Series run would erase some of that. If we're being honest, an ALCS run should have erased some of that. And if it didn't, it's because it can't be erased. So that's it. Like I said, we'll obviously be wrapping up the Astros season when it finally does wrap up, but that's how I'm going to approach tonight. I'm going to approach it with just trying to enjoy it. We've moved again to Whataburger, Texas native, connected to the Corpus Christi hook. So maybe the honey butter chicken biscuit will get it done. Because remember, if you think that your baseball team is going to win because you're eating chicken every day, it's because it will.
Holler and a Swaller, a chug of ballpark brew. Presented by The Hitter Sports.
And welcome back to Holler and a Swaller. I'm your host, James Christopher, and it's 2020 is awful. And that kind of has become this running theme of the whole show and this segment. And we've had Scott McIntyre on to talk about the loss of Lou Brock and to talk about the loss of Bob Gibson. Darian Sills-Evans was on to talk about the loss of Tom Seaver, and the Astros Nation and Reds Nation also dealt with their own loss. And you'll notice that I'm wearing the jersey, or at least the jersey style that Joe Morgan would have worn. Joe Morgan passed. And obviously, Joe Morgan's time with the Houston Astros predates me. I was not old enough to see him play, at least not with the Astros. And so for me, though, Joe Morgan was very much baseball. And listening to him call games really was one of those voices of the game from my past. And so it was definitely sad. I got to learn a lot more about Joe's career. He was inducted into the Astros Hall of Fame, in the first inaugural class for that. And one of the things that I was really cool, that happened with that was, when he was interviewed, he always talked about playing for the Reds. And I get it. Like, he played for the Reds. But for me, knowing he was an Astro was kind of like, I don't know. I got a little bit of mild resentment for the fact that he never really talked about his time with the Astros. What was kind of neat is apparently he didn't like that either. And he would talk a little bit about how, people say the Reds taught me to play baseball, but the Astros taught me to play baseball. So it was really, really cool to hear about those stories. He had an amazing voice. He was an amazing ball player, probably the best second baseman to ever play the game. And you talk about the legacy of the hometown nine, my hometown nine, of really, really great second basemen. I mean, Joe Morgan, and then Craig Biggio, and then Jose Altuve, and then even guys like Billy Doran who played. it's kind of neat that that's that legacy. It's like the Dallas Cowboys and quarterbacks or something. So we do want to do a toast to Joe Morgan. Rest easy. We're going to be drinking an Independence Brewing Native Texan, which is a great Pilsner. We feel like, you know what? Joe was an Astro. That's close enough for us. Why not a Native Texan? So let's get that open. Look at that. For Joe. Holler and a swaller, baby.
Lights, camera, play ball. Inside baseball cinema.
And so now we are back with Andy Tom Chesson on Lights, Camera, Baseball to talk about, Andy, Ted Lasso is a show you made a point of having me watch. You kept saying it's going to hit me everywhere where it lived. It might be one of my favorite shows I've ever seen.
I will tell you that last night I started a rewatch of a series that I finished last week because it's just that good. And I think it is part of the time that we are in a pandemic in 2020, just being maybe one of the worst years that most of us can remember. It's just a really interesting study in a bunch of good people trying to do good things and seeing the results of that.
I think that is it. I think watching, first of all, it's written by a guy, created by a guy that you and I both really enjoyed his work on Scrubs, Bill Lawrence, which I think hits in our narrative wheelhouse anyway of funny but heart. And I think you're right. I think the idea that it's good people, the most character I can compare Ted Lasso, played by created by Jason Sudeikis, it's very Leslie Knope, and it's very, I am the person who sees the best in things. And sometimes the comedy comes from the fact that we as a jaded society think that's ridiculous.
Yes. I think especially when you put that in the framework of the parlance soccer hooligans, some of the best interactions he has outside of the team are when he's in the pub in his neighborhood, which is a fantastic looking set, by the way. I assume they're on location. Yeah. But that bar with the apartments on it and the tree, the lights, it's really cool looking. Because I was watching last night the episode where his wife leaves in the taxi, which is a little heart wrench there. Right. But every one of those episodes of that, his nickname as coach from all the locals is Wanker. That is not a term of endearment, at least at the beginning of the series. Yeah. And it flips at some point. And even the soccer hooligans have to acknowledge that he's not doing a bad job. And his optimism about everything absolutely wins them over, even though they are all predispositioned to hate him at the beginning of the series for some pretty good reasons.
Pretty good. Yeah, we would, if it were the Astros and we found out that, I'm just trying to think of, if Trevor Bauer became the manager, maybe that's too.
I don't even think it's that, because Trevor Bauer at least understands baseball. I think it'd be like Bobby the Brain Heenan coming from the WWF and being named the manager of a Major League Baseball team.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. That's a better example of that. One of the things I liked it too is, following it narratively, obviously I'm in film and you understand the medium very well. They had so many opportunities to go for these cheap sort of soap opera-y storylines, and instead, again, leaned into the fact that people can be better than that, intentionally laid those seeds and didn't plant them. And I really appreciated that.
I think one of the interesting characters for me, and there's a bunch, because I think one of the things Bill Lawrence does really, really well is create characters you care about, even if they're periphery characters or secondary characters, is the owner of the team, Rebecca Welton, I think is her divorce name.
Fantastic character.
She is set up at the beginning to be a Major League-esque character who is trying to spite her ex-husband by getting his soccer team that she got as part of the divorce settlement relegated down to the Champions League, which also is a hilarious bit when Lasso hears we're in the Premier League, and when you get demoted, you go to the Champions League.
Yeah.
Country makes no sense.
This country makes no sense.
But she starts off very, very cold, not unlike Rachel in the Major League franchise, and is trying to undermine her team and does things up until really the 7th episode of the 10 series run or 10 episode run in the first season to undermine Lasso, undermine the team, try to get people disinterested in. And she's struggling against herself the entire time because his optimism and his way of looking at the world is so ridiculously infectious that up to the point that she has to admit her plot to him, and he just forgives her.
Yeah. And a cheaper sitcom has them make up, and then the plot executes by itself.
Right.
And instead, you're right. They really steered into the skid of what those characters were trying to do.
And you could see from the very first episode, despite her best intentions, he was going to get close to her. He got close to her and won her over despite everything that was going on in her life and her mental state.
Yeah.
I think his exact quote was, "Divorce makes people do crazy things." Knowing that he isn't actually divorced yet or had been divorced for about 48 hours at that point.
But I thought that's another great thing, too, because not even just him, he could have been two-dimensional, but we saw himself struggle because there's moments where even he breaks his own,
yes,
I'm optimistic, because it's almost like he knows this is the only way to navigate the world, and it's not easy.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite episodes, I think, is number 3, where he's being interviewed by Trent Krim, who's supposed to be the hard journalist from
character. They could have been two-dimensional that I loved, by the way.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And so this is part of one of Rebecca's undermining strategies is I'm going to put this investigative reporter on him and have him tear Ted Lasso apart.
Better here.
And to be fair, Trent starts off wanting to tear him apart and writes an article that isn't necessarily at the end of the time all that flattering, but he acknowledges that this guy's a good guy and he's trying to do the best that he can in a shit situation. And he does that with everything in his life to the point that he's eating food that is going to make him sick so he doesn't make somebody else feel bad.
Yeah.
And eating second helpings of it.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, man. Yeah, that was murder. But I do think like that character, I think the character of Roy Kent.
Roy Kent's fantastic.
Fantastic character. The character you're supposed to like giving everybody. It almost like I wish that we could take all of baseball Twitter and say, everybody watch this and realize that most of how we interact are reactions to our own stuff. And it isn't even got anything to do with and if we can just all understand that we have our own stuff. And I'm definitely going to tag Jeff Passan in this because I think he might find that funny
I think the biggest beat for me in the 10th episode, the season finale, which there is a season 2 coming, was what happens with Roy. And I don't know, I don't think everybody on this listening to the show or watching this is going to necessarily have seen it. So I don't want to give it away because it's a particularly emotional point. It's not exactly what you would expect to happen, but everything that Roy Kent was at the beginning of the season completely unraveled in a 30-second bit of acting that was just no words even, just incredibly emotional. It just kind of summed up the whole series for me because Roy Kent was somebody who was having none of the gaffer's nonsense.
Yeah.
And he fully bought into it by the end. And it made him a better person because he fully bought into it by the end. And he was rewarded for it.
I think the strength of this show really, shows the strength of, and I know like it's the world we live in, but this is what premium television can be.
Right.
You could not pull that show off on network TV. You would have too many executives going, why isn't this happening yet? Like so much of it is, like you said, nuggets built in episode 1 that don't pay off except for 30 seconds in episode 10. And I really hope that we see Roy again in what might be a logical step for him.
A great example of that is one of the things that Lasso tells Sam, the Nigerian forward or defenseman, first episode. You know what the happiest animal in the animal kingdom is? It's a goldfish. You know why? Because they only have a 10-second memory. Your job is to be a goldfish.
Be a goldfish.
And they do a callback to that in the 10th episode. There's no other mention of being a goldfish for every season. Yeah. There's no merch out that says be a goldfish like you would have with an NBC show.
Yeah.
I think the other strength of what TV can be is that because it is a 10 episode season, you don't have filler.
Right.
You don't have. I love Scrubs. We mentioned Scrubs, and this is a Bill Lawrence production, just like that was. But those were 22 or 23 episode seasons, and everybody involved will admit to you there's some clunkers in there.
Yeah.
When you're doing a 10 episode season and they're 30 minutes apiece, there's not a lot of room for bad episodes. If it is, you have a bad series.
And I get annoyed when I see a filler episode and I'm like, why are you wasting my hour?
There's no room to do a Ted Lasso clip show.
No. And I'll tell you how much Jessica and I hooked into it because I'm also going to be talking about it on our movie show with Carlo Rodriguez in his segment, and he watched it in a day and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, listen, no, Jessica and I are like, we're allowing ourselves 1 or 2 a day because we don't want it to be over. And that's really what that show meant. For everything where Cobra Kai brought anxiety, this was just love and joy, and I didn't want it to be over.
I think the other thing I really liked about it is that it's sports-based, which is absolutely my wheelhouse, but it is you got just enough winning and just enough of the reality of being a professional sports franchise, which means losing, because that's what all professional sports franchises do at some point.
Yeah.
That it felt, even though they kind of abbreviated what's, I think, like a 38-game season in the Premier League, he came in with 8 games to play. You only saw footage from 3 or 4 of them, but that's okay, because the soccer, while it was the setting, is so secondary to what they were talking about and what they were doing, what they were trying to live by, that the way they did it was enough, and it was realistic, to the point that one of my favorite baseball movies, and I won't mention Bull Durham, but this is kind of along the same lines, is the one that the kid that inherits the Minnesota Twins.
Oh, Little Big League.
Little Big League. And it's one of my favorite because they get to the championship game or the game they need to advance in the playoffs or whatever the situation was, and they lose, and then it's over.
Yeah.
Just like life.
Just like life. So I guess my final question then, and I don't like, because you guys have MLS in Houston. We are apparently getting, I mean, have you ever had do you have any interest in going now after watching it?
I will admit to having a now 14-year-old daughter, but I had a 9-year-old daughter, and 9-year-old girls play soccer. It's just one of the things they do now. So we played at Oaks Dad's Club. We went to a few Dynamo games because I think the Dash didn't exist at that point. That's the women's MLS team. It's a fun time. It's a lot better in person, like a lot of sports, hockey, and I think baseball to some extent. It's a whole lot better in person and more fun in person than it is trying to watch it on TV, especially if you are someone like me who did not grow up around the sport. So it's the same issue I have with hockey I have with soccer, or football, which is life.
Yeah, football is life.
Any Rojas?
Yeah, that's right.
Is that I can't watch a player and tell that he's better than the other player.
Yeah.
I can do that in baseball because I know what I'm looking for. I can do that in football because I know what I'm looking for, and basketball is the same way. But soccer is just constant motion, and it's a lot of fun. You get into the cheers and the chants and some of the stuff we were talking about with the KBO, when we had a lot of dead time to kill earlier in the year. Yeah. It's a lot of fun like that, and there's a big sense of community. And I think with Austin getting an MLS team, Austin's the kind of city that's really going to embrace that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, Jessica and I, as we wrap up, we're planning on going. But I remember I posted the Ted Lasso thing that I was watching it and was going to check out the Austin Bold. And I had said I'd never been to a soccer game before, and it was reminded that I actually coached middle school soccer for about 5 games. Honestly, I lived the Ted Lasso life because I was the athletic director at St. Austin's and had to fire the coach for being a jerk, and we needed a coach. And so I knew nothing about the game. The dads trolled me. I was all buddies with them, and they're like, "Hey, this is a good time to call a timeout." And I tried.
Mm-hmm.
There are no timeouts in soccer.
No, there's no timeouts.
Yeah, but
well, I mean, and that's the conceit of Ted Lasso, right? Is that he knows nothing about the sport he's coaching, but his ability to coach and get the best out of these guys transcends the environment or the sport that they're in.
Yeah,
which I think is it's great. It's a great message.
Who's on first? The Let's Get To Local 9. Brought to you by Zoomer Sport.
All right, so we are excited to welcome Anderson Rathbun. He is the general manager of the Burlington
Blanks right now
of the Appy League. Anderson, how's it going, man?
It's going great. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here with you.
We're super excited to have you. Before we jump into what's going to happen in the Appy League with Burlington, just a little bit about yourself. How'd you get into baseball? How'd you first fall in love with the game and end up, there?
Yeah, so baseball has kind of been in my blood ever since I was born. My first baseball game I went to was the '95 World Series when I was still inside my mom's womb. So I'm a huge Cleveland Indians fan. Unfortunately, we haven't had a lot of success over the last 2 decades that I've been alive. But yeah, I grew up a huge Indians fan, going to Jacobs Field with my dad, and just loved Omar Vizquel and loved the game. And I was really focused on in high school on what I wanted to do when I grew up, just like everybody was. And my marketing teacher, she said the quote, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And I hate working. So my dad is a workaholic and I'm not. So I figured, I might as well love what I do, or else I'm going to have to work. So I decided I want to work in sports. Didn't exactly know what capacity that was going to be. Didn't exactly know what sport. I had a preference towards baseball, but yeah, so I kind of went to college just knowing I wanted to work in sports. So I went to Clemson University, studied sports marketing and economics there. And I was giving a speech in my public speaking class, my spring semester freshman year at Clemson. And it was like, what do you want to do when you grow up? Yeah, people in college still talk about what they want to do when they grow up. And I talked to him and I gave a speech of how I wanted to work in baseball, specifically front office. I really thought I wanted to go on the player development side. Like every, young kid who wants to break into baseball thinks they want to be the next, Theo Epstein, be the next GM of a baseball team. And I was no different. I wanted to be that as well. And after the class was over, a kid tugged on my backpack and said, "Hey, my brother works for a small minor league team. Would you? I know you want to work for a major league team, but would you want to start off at the minor league level?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, definitely." I was 19 years old at the time. I had no idea what to expect or how to even start in sports. But yeah, so that was his name was Randall Kerr, that my now buddy, and Ryan Kerr was the general manager for the Burlington Royals. So I came up here in that summer. And I was 19 years old in 2015, and I did a decent enough job where Ryan seemed to like me, and he kind of stuck with. I kind of stuck with him the rest of the way. He got a team president job down in Daytona with the Tortugas.
Oh, nice.
Yep, and offered me an internship there in 2017. I went down there in 2017. Had the internship, and then he offered me a full-time position. So I was director of business development in 2018 and 2019, and then director of corporate partnerships for the Tortugas in 2019 heading into 2020. And then Ryan got the team up here in Burlington, asked me if I wanted to come up here, and the rest is, the last 6 months is history.
So before we jump into what it's going to mean for Burlington, on behalf of Astros fans everywhere, I'd like to say thank you for Michael Brantley.
Yeah, you're welcome. He was, I've had 2 all-time favorite players is Omar Vizquel and Michael Brantley. And to see him go to another team, let alone the Astros. Yeah, I was sad, to say the least. He's
such he's my wife's favorite player. And when they talk about him on the broadcast, it's always his quiet bat. And every time he comes up, my wife's like, quiet bat. And I'm like, yep. Hey, that's adorable. So I don't know if you guys still call him this, but Indians fans, we nicknamed him Dr. Smooth because everything he did is just so smooth. He's just Uncle Mike. That's what we call him.
Uncle Mike to you guys. Yeah, I can see that too. He's now the old guy.
Yeah, that's so him and Springer got real close real fast, and that's what he called him. And
gotcha.
That's kind of, in fact, I saw that on the broadcast. The TBS guys referred to him as Dr. Smooth, and I was like, who? It's Uncle Mike.
Yeah.
Guys. But let's talk a little bit about Burlington. So, one of the things that we've been talking about on this show has been this issue of contraction. And I'll be honest, going into it, Major League Baseball had promised that they were going to keep baseball in every community. And you could probably guess a lot of people thought, yeah, you're promising that, but where are the specific plans?
Right.
It seems like so far they are moving the Appy League into Collegiate Summer League. First of all, what is that move going to mean for you guys?
Yeah, I think, well, to go back a little bit, we knew when we were coming up here in March that Burlington was on the chopping block. We knew that for months. And so our first mission when we got here was, all right, how do we preserve the longevity of baseball here in Burlington? Burlington has always been a baseball town. We've been in the minor leagues. We've been affiliated since the 80s. We were the Indians, and then we were the Royals. And then prior to that, we were the Senators and the Pirates way back when. So we've always had a history of baseball here. So that was priority number one, is how do we find something that can keep baseball here? And then priority number two was, how do we what's the best level of competition we can have here? So we knew that affiliated ball wasn't really going to happen here. We were hoping that there's going to be a chance, but we knew that chance was very, very small. So we kind of set out and tried to find our own way here. Now, I don't think anybody back in March would have expected a scenario quite like this. I think this really is the golden scenario that is perfect. And I think when it's all said and done, when we are, hot and heavy in this league 2-3 years from now, we're going to look back and we're going to be like, this was probably even better than affiliated ball. So I think that's what the future of Appalachian League baseball here, the Appy League, really is reliant on this league. And I think it's the what's the word I'm looking for? The success of this league is really just going to be the fact that it's Major League Baseball. Like, everybody is, when we release this, and rightfully so, everybody's sad that affiliated baseball is not going to be in Burlington.
Sure.
When they think of Kansas City not going to be here, but really it still is affiliated baseball. Like, this is directly related and directly partnered and sponsored by Major League Baseball. So we're extremely excited. We're really, really pumped to have the level of competition that we're about to have here in Burlington. I don't know if you saw the video that we released last week. Harold Reynolds was talking on MLB Network just about the potential that this league has. Yeah. And whereas, we would probably have about 5 to 10% of players that came through the Burlington Royals system make the majors eventually. Whereas we're probably going to have closer to 40 to 50% of these guys.
That's what I was going to say. In many ways, your talent on the field actually probably gets better.
Yep.
I know it's a harder stretch. One of the things that I was excited about, as I look to teams to cover, our show is really culturally focused and it's almost human interest. And so honestly, covering the Burlington Royals doesn't fire me up so much because of the parent club identity, really. And it's that it's like we've been to the Chattanooga Lookouts, but I won't go to the Mississippi Braves.
Right.
But now you guys get to redefine your own brand. So what is that process going to be like?
Well, so we were actually hoping for that, regardless of what league, regardless if we stayed affiliated, we were planning and hoping to rebrand regardless, because I think that is what really separates minor league baseball from Major League Baseball. And specifically here in Burlington and the Appy League communities in general, is we've never, no team has ever had their own identity. Every single team in every single era of the Appy League has always been the parent club. So the fact that we get to have a Burlington and Alamance County identities is absolutely huge just for a community impact standpoint. And yeah, you're right. I mean, the Burlington Royals is cool because we're affiliated, but Burlington, whatever we're about to be, when hopefully we release our name the team contest here in the next couple of weeks, whatever we're about to be, it's just going to have so much more of an impact on the local community here. And that's what it's really all about. That's what the minor league baseball is about. It's about growing the game. It's about growing our community and moving forward together. So we're really excited to take on that opportunity. And we're pumped to get that kicked off here in the next couple of weeks.
So one of the things it's been interesting for me, because I knew nothing of collegiate summer league baseball till this year. I practically grew up in the Astrodome, so I didn't even know about minor league baseball till I married a girl from San Antonio. And then without being able to go to affiliated minor league baseball for the second season of our show, but collegiate summer league still played in a lot of pockets, I fell in love with it so hard. The quality of the baseball, the quality of the competition is so good. The players, they've got that extra step because they know that they're playing to get drafted. Have you guys been able to communicate that to the community, that that's what they're going to see of these kids, that they're going to fall in love with, and not only that, but they're going to have for a whole season instead of seeing them move up and down and around?
Yeah. And not only that, I think you hit the nail right on the head. And not only that, but Burlington is right between Durham and Greensboro, Durham and Wake Forest. We have Raleigh there. So we have Duke, we have UNC, we have NC State, we have Wake Forest, you name it. We have so many powerhouse Power 5 schools in our area that that's where our players are going to come from. So I think not only the level of competition that we're going to see here and the drive that these players are going to have, but where they're coming from too. They're going to be coming from our backyard. They're going to be coming from these brand name schools that people are going to want to follow and the fans are going to want to follow. So I think it's going to open the door to have more fans introduced to the Appy League in general. And I think it's going to have more of a hometown feel as well, because 30 minutes down the road, the star of Duke is going to be playing right here in Burlington for the future. So I think that's a huge plus. On top of, we're now going to be a freshman and sophomore, incoming freshman and rising sophomore league as well. So we have the potential to have players for more than a year. Now, when we were a rookie level affiliate, if we had we had a lot of players for more than 1 year, but typically that's not the best sign for those players. Minor leagues, you want to go up the ranks, but here it's going to be a good thing. So people are going to be hopefully able to be attached more to players if they're here for their second year. And that's a good thing instead of, they're back for a second year. So I think we're really excited for just a plethora of reasons from the college player standpoint that it really, this league, I don't see how it can be anything but a huge success.
So will you guys do host families, all that fun stuff like you see in other, I don't know if y'all do it for the rookie level or not, but is that how y'all are going to handle some of that?
So we're actually going to operate very, very similar to how we were when we were affiliated ball. So and that's an even better part for our community, because we're going to be utilizing our local hotels and we're going to be providing revenue to the local hotels. So we're really excited to keep that relationship here with our community, with our economy here. So yeah, I know a lot of collegiate woodbat leagues use host families, but yeah, Major League Baseball has assured us that we can keep that relationship with our local hotels, which is incredible for our local economy.
So then as we wrap up, then what's the timetable look like? When can people start getting involved in the naming the team? Do you have any ideas that you're hoping for? I mean, I think the Burlington fighting Anderson sounds great. I don't know about you.
No, that would be cool. That would be a fun one. I don't think a lot of teams would have a GM as the mascot, but we'll see. I'm goofy enough looking, so maybe it'll draw some attention. But no, we're hoping to plan that within the next, I would say, week or two to release the name the team contest. And in all honesty, I don't have any preconceived names here. I'm trying to come to a blank slate and to see what the community wants, because at the end of the day, we want our community to decide the name. We want it to be something that's based off of local history. Now, I've spent the last month and a half in focus groups, in history lessons, and I know more about Alamance County and Burlington than I know about my own hometown. So I'm really pumped to see what the rest of the community has to say and their input, and then we'll go from there. But yeah, so hopefully in the next month we'll have a name and a logo, and then from there it's full steam ahead. We're gonna have some energy going into 2021.
On deck, the Let's Get To interview, brought to you by Marco Fine Arts.
So we are excited to welcome back to Let's Get To Andrew Feltz, who is, I wouldn't even say friend of, like brother of the show at this point, right?
I'll take it. That's high praise.
Hey, well earned. And what I love about what we're going to talk about is the most Texas thing ever. I believe it was Garth Brooks who said that it was the bulls and blood and the dust and mud. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, they call the thing rodeo.
Yeah, a little bit. Tell me a little bit about what's coming to the Dell.
Yeah, absolutely. We're so excited. It'll be November 13th and 14th. We partnered up with Rodeo Austin for an event called Bulls in the Ballpark. It's a 2-night event. We're going to have 35 of the top bull riders in the country, some of the best bulls that they can wrangle up out here on the infield at Dell Diamond. 2-night bull riding event. There's $20,000 up for grabs each night for the riders. There'll be mutton busting in between with some of the kids. And, Rodeo Austin, if you've never been to a Rodeo Austin presentation, I mean, they do just such a phenomenal job with the atmosphere, and they're bringing all of that to Dell Diamond. Their barrel man will be here with all of his antics. They're bringing their PA guy, a longtime announcer. So it's going to look and feel a lot like a Rodeo Austin event, but right here inside Dell Diamond, of course, unique inside the baseball stadium, and you'd be right on top of the arena. So it's going to be really fun.
Okay, let's begin with how did this happen? Because I think it's super cool because obviously you're a native Texan, yeah?
Mostly, yeah.
Mostly. Okay. Rodeo is a big part of our culture, and they all got shut down as well. So you're really doing two things. How did it even get started?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I mean, you look at, I think you could say this for probably every minor league baseball market in the country, but we've got a minor league hockey team here. We've got an NBA G League team. You've got Circuit of the Americas. You've got Rodeo Austin. You've got all these different venues and sports organizations that everybody was impacted, either canceled or postponed or shut down or what have you. And so, Rodeo Austin was in the same boat. Their event was supposed to kick off, I think, the week that kind of everything shut down and the NBA and then baseball followed. And so they really have not been doing much of anything. And so we've been slowly kind of coming back with some concerts and some movie nights and some events at the ballpark. And we've really kind of laid the foundation and proven that we can host outdoor events. We can social distance. We can do it safely. And so once the rodeo folks, I think, caught wind of that and said, hey, what can we do? How does this make sense to kind of marry, what we do at Rodeo Austin with being outdoors, being in the ballpark, this facility that is set up to be socially distanced like we are. And I think the other thing, too, that helped us back in 2016, I think I mentioned this to you before somewhere in passing, but my favorite event that we've ever done in my time with the Express here at Dell Diamond, it was called Buckin' and Truckin'. And it was a 2-day monster truck rally that had bull riding in between. And so we've already, this is not our first rodeo, but it is our second. So we had the shoots before. We've done the arena on the infield. We kind of have at least an idea of how this looks and feels. And some of the feedback we got from that event, and started to say earlier, but there's really, the way that it's set up, the arena kind of sits directly over the infield. So it goes really from first to third, back behind home plate, up past second base, and then the shoots kind of sit behind second base in the outfield. And so when you think about the way that a minor league stadium is constructed, there's not a bad seat in the house. You can be in the last row in one of the sections. Right. You're right on top of these bowls and these riders. And so to get back to the question, I think it almost made too much sense. Of course, our relationships with Rodeo Austin and the folks out there and using this facility and being able to put this together. So it's definitely a collaborative effort.
How excited are they to get the opportunity to get them out there and doing it?
I think they're fired up. But like I said, they lost their entire rodeo season in March. And to my knowledge, they really haven't been doing much otherwise. Kind of hands are tied with Travis County. And I know they're out at the Austin Expo Center. And so from the conversations we've had with them, and like I said, they're pulling out all the stops. And I think they're really excited to put this together and invite some rodeo fans out and get some actual bull riding here going in 2020.
And for my viewers outside of Texas, just to really put it into context, when I knew COVID was real was when the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, where I grew up, which is it's the second or third biggest rodeo in the world, shut down halfway through. So this really is a real bellwether that maybe some things are starting to come back a little bit. Fingers crossed.
So, you talk about Texas, you look at Houston Rodeo, San Antonio. I know Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo is huge. You go all over the state, and Austin Rodeo is no exception. But, I think we've talked about this going back to baseball, but looking at 2021, and you kind of look at what the NFL is doing with fans slowly starting to kind of trickle in. You look at, of course, baseball with the NLCS starting and then allowing fans up at Globe Life Field. And so hopefully we've gotten to that point where it's at least not crazy bananas that there's fans in the stands. Again, you got to do it safely, responsibly. And at the end of the day, we've preached this since March when everything started happening, but the safety of our fans and our folks that come to Dell Diamond is paramount. So if we can't do something safely, we wouldn't be doing it. But yeah, like you said, hopefully we're kind of to that point where it's becoming a little bit more normal. We kind of understand how to live with this and, hopefully ultimately parlay that into minor league baseball in 2021.
Well, we told you guys from the beginning that, and it stands true, we took many more trips since then, that you guys did it the best of anybody else as far as park preparedness and safety. What are we looking at for the bull riding event? Is there a larger percentage allowed to be in? Like, how do you think that's going to flow?
We have very similar to how we've got it set up. Saw you out at the TCL and we talked about it here on the show, but the actual seating bowl will be very similar to what that was like. Every other row will be blocked off. We've got kind of sections of seats to maintain 6 feet between, every kind of pod of seats, and no two aisles have seats where you have to walk in front of somebody or behind somebody. So this is something that we've been discussing really since March when baseball first kind of was suspended, and we didn't know if there was going to be a season, how many games, what capacity. And so we really had plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D. And we spent months, no hyperbole, months putting these plans together. And what does the seating bowl look like? How do we deal with ingress, egress, bathrooms, concession stands, all of it. And so now that we get to the point, like you said, where we're able to start putting this together, we were able to execute, and we were lucky. We've had a couple concerts out here, movie nights. And so I think people are kind of understanding how this works, and the one-way concourse and one-way bathroom.
Yeah.
Spaced out the concession stands, all that stuff. It's a learning curve for everybody, but I think we're getting through it.
And we'll have full concessions available and all that stuff?
Yes, sir. Better believe it.
Good. Get an ice cold beer on a chilly November night.
It's absolutely wet. It's a rodeo. I mean, what's better than that?
I guess my one question is, did the grounds crew put up any major protest to the idea that, because there's no way that infield's getting destroyed?
Yeah, I think, we go back and forth with different events we can do, and we try to stick with baseball heavy. We, of course, back to the Texas Collegiate League, we've done batting practice experiences out here. We've had, 10U, 12U, 16U kids out here practicing. And so it's like, as much as we can stick to baseball. But now you get into November and it's kind of the winter. And I think once they, we're content with, okay, we're going to have to replace the infield. I think they're a lot more excited. And these guys, RS3 Turf is our kind of in-house turf provider, and they're just the best in the business. So I think that's another feather in their cap too, is, hey, we hosted a bull riding event on our field and we rebuilt it, and we're going to be ready for baseball in April. So
I think for the show, I need to go out and get video before, immediately after, and then video the next season just to really show off what you're doing.
Oh, it's incredible. When we had that monster truck event, we had a GoPro at the very top of the stadium that recorded for a week, the build out of the monster truck track, tear down, and then when they ripped everything up, and it's just, I think it's on our YouTube page or on our website somewhere floating around, but it's just an incredible video of the way this thing came together, and then the field was rebuilt, in a couple of weeks.
That's incredible. So tell everybody real quick what the deets, when, how much, where they can find tickets.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be November 13th and 14th, about a month from now here at Dell Diamond. The cheapest ticket starts at $20. So, that's what we're all about, affordable family entertainment. They kind of go up from there depending on how close you want to get to the action, but everything's online, rrexpress.com. It's going to be a really fun event, and we're excited. And this might be the beginning of a new relationship with us and the rodeo folks, and who knows where this might go.
How much do I have to pay to get to ride a bull?
That is a great question. That might be the next step.
The Minor League Mind with Jess Knaster.
All right, so we're jumping on the Minor League Mind, and it's weird because Jess is back with us. Weird, Jess, because we kind of thought we would have all this information, and yet there's still no information except there's still negotiations. But there has been some information that I think actually will cause a fundamental shift in the direction of minor league baseball. If you want to talk to us about what happened.
Yeah, so first, I think after the way this whole thing started last year, with the initial negotiations between MLB and MILB being leaked to everybody, it's not surprising that any progress that's going to be made is going to be, if it's going to be announced, it's going to be announced on MLB's terms.
Sure.
Because they got major egg on their face last year for what seemed to be a crazy proposal at the time, and now it's going to happen. So, there's that. But at the same time, it's all going to be incremental. But no, they announced, MLB announced October 7th. So I have no concept of days or whatever. It was last week. Peter B. Freund, I believe is how you pronounce his last name. He's a owner of 3 minor league teams, and 2 soccer teams, one in the U.S. and one in England. Well-versed owner. He is going to be kind of acting as like a liaison between Major League Baseball and minor league baseball, transitioning over. What it is exactly he's going to be transitioning over wasn't very clear in the press releases. But again, that's kind of par for the course nowadays. We will find out when we are meant to find out. So he's going to be involved somehow in the transition process of getting minor league baseball set up into the way Major League Baseball wants it to be in the future from the business perspective.
There's a couple of things to unpack. So let's talk about what we know. So what we know is essentially the headquarters of minor league baseball, which, friends of this show that have appeared on the show a bunch, presumably will either be told to move from Florida or be out of a job. So the headquarters is now going to move to New York. What does losing some of those people in the in the St. Petersburg office, what do you think that's going to mean to sort of the direction of the sport?
Well, I think from the press release it released, the one that was released by Major League Baseball, it really seemed clear that the future of minor league baseball, in their eyes, is as a lesser division of Major League Baseball.
Sure.
And I think, as an employee of minor league baseball, and hopefully an employee of minor league baseball in the future, I think that is wrong. I think that is the wrong way to look at it, because minor league baseball doesn't offer what Major League Baseball offers, and that is a good thing. It's a different way to approach the same event, because Major League Baseball, you're going to see a baseball game. Minor League Baseball, you're also going to a baseball game, but you're usually not there for it. You're there for cheap beer, cheap food, a giveaway, all of the above.
Post-game concert. Yeah, I mean.
Post-game concert, mascots, kid zones, so many other things happen at minor league baseball games that just is not the focal point of what happens at a major league game. And so, from that standpoint of the future of baseball, I'm not sure necessarily. I mean, it could end up being, I think, maybe a lateral move. I don't know if there's any situation in which it ends up being a good move. I know in the MLB press release, they mentioned that it was this consolidation was best for the fans, players, organizations, and owners. And I can see it from the player standpoint, because
Sure.
if the owners have the ability to either purchase minority stakes in teams or outright gift various stadium or facility upgrades to teams that they are affiliated with, if that actually ends up happening, then yes, that's going to be great for the players, because they'll get nicer digs before they get to the major leagues.
Right.
From the team standpoint, again, the team is the players, because the front office is separate. The organization or the ownership, obviously they're gonna profit if Major League Baseball is in charge of sales and all that. But then it comes back to the fans, and I don't think there's much improvement needed to minor league baseball for the fans, because minor league baseball the last couple of years has seen, after a drop off a couple of years ago in attendance, saw a tremendous rise in attendance in 2019, and I don't think you need to fix that.
A tremendous rise in attendance, actually, and outpacing many other forms of entertainment. And I guess that's to your point, because the only way, the ownership of your minor league team, the ownership of your major league team, but it really should be like umpiring and officiating in a sport. It's bad if you notice it. And yeah, if they do kind of homogenize that product that you and I talk about being so special, that is where it'll be bad for the fans.
Well, and as someone who has a background, especially the last couple of years in the in-game entertainment side of minor league baseball, and really focusing on the game presentation, I don't know, other than having top of the line equipment, having the same stuff at any minor league ballpark, or a single A or a double A ballpark that you could get at any major league ballpark, which I don't think will happen.
Yeah.
Save for that, I don't know what really could be done that would be to the fans' benefit. That at least as of now, having been on the inside and seeing what is really to the fans' benefit, I don't know what that could be. And so it seems like right now that could be just lip service.
So let's try to find a positive angle to it. I think there's a lot of reasons to be worried about all of this. I think at the personal stake of friends of ours that would lose jobs. I mean, you talked about pretty openly about your situation, but we've had on the show a GM from an Appy League team that is moving to Collegiate Summer League, and it seems excited about the opportunity. So let's look at the positive side. This guy you said owns 3 minor league teams. Do you know what levels they're on?
Yeah, he's got ownership in the Memphis Redbirds, AAA, PCL, the Charleston River Dogs in South Carolina. That's the Southern Atlantic League. And what's interesting from a affiliation loss standpoint is he has ownership of the Williamsport Crosscutters of the New York Penn League, who are on the list
First
initially.
list, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they're, again, going back to the original point of Major League Baseball is going to disseminate information when they decide they want that information disseminated, and they just won't tell anybody anything because they've been burned by it previously. The only iteration of the list we've seen, the Crosscutters are on it. And, as a fun aside to that, Major League Baseball has already announced, I think, for next year and multiple years beyond, the desire to continue having the Little League World Series, or the Little League Classic game, the Major League game, being played at the home of the Crosscutters, who may not have minor league baseball next year. But
yeah, it would be weird to see that Williamsport lose their team.
Yeah.
So I guess
so he's got those 3 teams.
So my question then stems from this. That's a pretty wide cross section, including the River Dogs, which are one of the more forward-thinking teams as far as fan experience. It helps when Bill Murray is also a part owner. Does that give you any confidence that maybe some of what fans do like won't necessarily go away?
I think there at least is there is that. I'd say having an owner who has seen success at 3 different levels, and the even just between Charleston and Memphis, low A and triple A, there's a lot that you just can't do at the lower levels that is much easier to do at the higher levels. And so having somebody who knows what works and can act as that ambassador to Major League Baseball, I would imagine he's going to have his brain picked relentlessly as to best methods for everything. And at the very least, that's what it seems like they should do since they brought him on board. If they don't use him to that way, I'd say they've made a mistake, because he does know what works, from business practices all the way down to the best nights to do $1 hot dogs or whatever. So to carry that on and to allow him to represent what works in minor league baseball from the top all the way down to the bottom, if they, assuming that's how they end up using him, then I think it will be to the benefit of the 120 that stick around, because they have somebody representing them who knows his way around.
Okay, well, that's at least some positive news. Now, what I want to do now is transition away from your wheelhouse, away from your, not K-zone, I guess. As we record this programming note, we are in the middle of the ALCS. I don't know what the Astros rank record will be in that ALCS by the time we get this thing edited and dropped. Why should I not be excited about Dusty Baker as manager of our bullpen going forward, Mr. San Francisco Giants fan?
Oh, 2002. Let me paint the picture for you.
Please.
Up 3 games to 2, up 5-0 in Game 6 on the road, 5 outs away from the first World Series. Worst World Series, that doesn't not fit. First World Series win for the San Francisco Giants in franchise history, after losing twice before. Ace on the mound, Russ Ortiz gives up a base hit. There's a guy on. Dusty Baker walks out of the dugout, takes the ball from his starter, gives him the game ball for doing such a good job in delivering the Giants 5 outs from the World Series. Scott Spezio, 3-run homer. Angels end up winning the game. Rack and frack and rally monkey, as has long been the term in my house. Giants lose Game 7, and they don't win the World Series. And even though they were a better team statistically the following year, they won 100 games and went wire to wire. They got knocked out in the first round by the Marlins. It then sent the team into a 7-year tailspin where they didn't make the playoffs again until 2010 when they won the World Series. So if why should you not be excited about Dusty Baker? Because he does make mistakes. I'd say you should be excited about Dusty Baker because he has learned from his mistakes. And even though he has never won a World Series, I do believe he has gotten better at various things. He's an old school baseball guy. And as a guy who was who's been a Giants fan his entire life, especially the last 17 years, getting to see Bruce Bochy do it in San Francisco, I am staunchly against calling a game as a manager strictly by analytics.
Sure.
And Dusty Baker, I think, is a perfect bridge gapper because the Astros front office is about analytics, but Dusty Baker is not. And so there is a middle ground there that I think he can provide. To the games themselves, 14 hits through 2 games for the Astros and an average exit velocity of some large number.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to put. Yeah,
it's a 7-game series, and I think you can't count the Astros out just yet. But I love low scoring playoff baseball, and each of the first 2 games of that series have been thoroughly enjoyable as a mostly neutral observer.
Sure,
Alex Bregman did sit in my car, so I'm slightly lean towards the Astros, but they've been fun baseball to watch.
That car seat's getting more and more valuable. Yeah, no, it's interesting because I think everybody likes Dusty, but he's made, his bullpen management through the regular season has been questionable at best. And yeah, but you're exactly right. You can't put them falling 0-2 anywhere down on Dusty Baker. I mean, you don't not write that lineup out every night, and the lineup is hit the ball hard, but everyone else. All right, Jess. So I guess enjoy the rest of the ALCS and the NLCS, and we will be back soon, hopefully with a little bit more shape as to what this minor league baseball season is going to look like in 2021.
I don't often celebrate Christmas, but I would take a stocking full of good news from minor league baseball around December 25th.
Dude, you and
And now on to close it out, the right-hander from Houston, Texas, James Christopher.
So that does wrap us up. We'll be back next week with our World Series preview. We will be down to the final 2. It'll either be the Astros and Rays versus either the Dodgers or the Braves. So we hope everybody's enjoying the playoffs. I hope you're enjoying what's been some really good baseball. Please be back with us next time. We're going to talk a little bit more Appy League stuff. We've got some more fun stuff coming from the rest of the show. So again, stay safe, stay sane, enjoy your run up to Halloween, and let's get to